I'd been asleep for maybe 5 minutes, and we got hit. We start taking rounds, and I caught a 7.62 round right in my side. Okay, my name's Chris Wiles. I'm 43. I served in the Army. I went in '99. Was deployed to Kosovo and Iraq. Kosovo in 2000, 2001, and then Iraq in '03 when we went in this time. When I got back from Iraq, I came off active duty and become a reserve drill sergeant for my remaining 3 years, and did that out of Granite City, Illinois. And got to go up to Fort McCoy, Wisconsin a couple times and train several groups getting ready to go over. I was, as a civilian, in the civilian world, I was an EMT paramedic at the time, so surprisingly they had me teaching medical classes up there. I was very surprised because it seemed to make entirely too much sense to have anything related to the Army, but and then got to go back down to Fort Benning where I did basic training and got to do an infantry trail down there teaching. Yeah, Kosovo was odd. I really enjoyed Kosovo. I actually tried to stay there. In the military, to transfer units, you put in paperwork. It's a DD form 4187. And I had put in my 4187 to transfer to the unit that was relieving us in Kosovo. So I could stay over there, and they wouldn't let me. They said I'd been gone for a year, I needed to come home. It was quite the experience. I mean, we had Albanians and Serbians, and for the most part throughout all of Kosovo, most towns you would have like 10% Serbs and 90% Albanians, or vice versa. My town, Cernica, that my platoon controlled, we had the 55 to 60% Albanians and then like 45 to 50% Serbians. And that definitely caused some grief. Our first night that my platoon went out and took over our town from the unit before us, the Serbs in our town had a town meeting. Serbians had a town meeting. They got together and they put all their children's names into a hat, and they drew 3 names out of that hat, and they killed those 3 children to blame it on the Albanians, so that we would, because when anything happened, we would restrict their movement. We would lower the curfew, set the curfew back early. And the Serbs didn't care because they didn't go anywhere, they didn't do anything. They stayed right there in their houses and their dwellings and did their own thing. Whereas most of our Albanians in the town, they went out to the bigger cities. They'd drive into Jelani or some of the other bigger towns to work all day. So if something would happen and we would restrict their curfew back to, say, 6 o'clock, well, if you're working in Jelani, which is almost an hour drive, and you don't get off until 5 or 6 o'clock, now you have to come to us and you have to get all this paperwork and do all this stuff in order to be able to go back and forth to work. And it made it very difficult on the Albanians. So the Serbians a lot of times would instigate things. They would essentially false flag operations. They would do things to themselves to blame it on the Albanians so that we would restrict the movement of the Albanians. First technical combat, first technical kill I had, on our patrol days, so in Cernica, our town that we controlled, we did a 4-day rotation. So you'd come out to Cernica, and your first day you'd be on patrols. So you'd do 4 2-hour foot patrols throughout the day, just walking around town. And then you do 2 3-hour mounted patrols at night in our Humvees, just driving around, checking everything out. And during the day patrols, we were supposed to stop and search at least 1 Albanian home and 1 Serbian home every day. Just randomly pick a home and go in and search it. And I mean, the townspeople were most all of them were really cool with us. It was not uncommon for people we'd be on patrol and people would see us and invite us into their house. They'd make us chai, their tea, and make us little crumpets, make us little snacks and everything. We just sit around and talk for an hour or so. And then when at some point we'd get up and we'd do a quick search around the house, just make sure everything was good to go, and then we'd go on about our way. And it was towards the end of our patrol day, and we had already done our Serb house early. We still needed an Albanian house to do. And we're coming down, walking down this road, and the wife is outside tending to the little garden and everything. She sees us, so she starts talking to us, waving. She's all excited and inviting us in. And of course, she already had chai made for us, had everything ready to go. And so we sat there just eating and talking, just having a good time for about 30, 45 minutes or so. And I mean, we had been in this house several times. We were pretty familiar with these people. It was a lot of times it was once a week. She would see us. Oh, come try with us. And so I mean, we were pretty familiar with these people. And so we'd gone in there. It's like, okay, I guess we ought to knock this search out. And I was on the saw gun, the squad automatic weapon, the machine gun. And so I'm standing back pulling security, just keeping an eye on everything while all my guys are going through their house and searching everything. And my guys get ready to go into this one bedroom, and I could just see the change on the guy. It was, you could just tell when my guys went into that room, he visibly started getting nervous. And it's just, well, that's weird. And I heard something in that room start to roll and start moving. And the guy, at that point, the guy pulls out a little Kami 9mm from behind him and starts shooting. He shot twice, missed the once. The second round actually hit the handguard on my saw of my weapon. Had it been an inch higher or an inch lower, I'd have been down. But it hit the handguard, busted the handguard, and when it did, I just fell back and sprayed as I was coming back, and all the way across. Turns out the room that my guys were in there searching, what I heard rolling was a false wall that they had rolled back, and it was all kinds of weapons, AK-47s, hand grenades, RPGs. He had all kinds of stuff in there. And that one really messed with me. It is unnatural to take another human's life. It is something we should never have to do. And after our debriefing that night, I went up on top of our building in the crow's nest and just bawled my eyes out most of the night. And the next morning, I was still sitting up there. I obviously didn't sleep that night, but I got a call on the radio that someone was down at our guard shack down at the bridge wanting to talk to me. That's odd. So I gather my stuff and I go down there, and when I get outside, I can see it was the wife of the man I just shot that night before. And she said, I am so sorry. She said, I told him over and over to get rid of that stuff, to not have that stuff in our house. I am so sorry you had to go through that. And it just blew my mind, because here I am, so sorry to her that I just killed her husband. And she's standing there crying, apologizing to me that he put me through having to go through that. And that blew my mind. At the end of Kosovo, now this was 2001. It was February 2001. We were getting relieved. We were getting ready to redeploy back to the U.S. And when we got shipped over there, we had the old Vietnam-style flak vests. And when we got there, we traded in our flak vests. The Army had just come out with the new IBAs, individual body armors. And so we had swapped out our flak vests for the new body armors. Well, once we got relieved down a sector and we come back to Jelani, getting ready to redeploy back to the U.S., we had swapped all our stuff back out. And so we're back to the old useless Vietnam-style flak vests. And the Serbian militia, the UCBMP, went on national TV and radio and said that they would be patrolling the DMZ, the demilitarized zone between Kosovo and Serbia. And which demilitarized zone, there's not supposed to be anyone in the demilitarized zone. And they went on national radio and television saying they were going to be patrolling the DMZ, and if they saw Americans, they would shoot to kill. So our theater commander said, oh, we've got these 101st Infantry guys sitting here not doing anything, waiting to go home. Let's send them out there. So we got sent out there. So for the next 3-4 days, we were patrolling the DMZ, just walking around basically waiting for a Serbian militia to see us and start shooting. And we ended up running into a squad of Serbians and had to dispatch them. So that was the 2nd through the 10th round of that. But unfortunately, the old saying, the more you do it, the easier it gets. As terrible as it is, it's true. So yeah, by the time Iraq rolls around, it's completely different scenario. But and yeah, I mean, with Kosovo, I was 20 years old. I was still a baby, you know, and that was wild. That was actually Baby Bush, George W. He came over to Kosovo when we come back out of the DMZ. He had come over because the theater commander of our area did not have permission to be sending us out. This was supposed to be a peacekeeping operation. He did not have permission to send us out into the DMZ on essentially a combat operation. And so George W. actually did. He came over and personally relieved the theater commander. And we ended up getting our CIB, our combat infantry badge out of it, which had to fight for years to get VFW to recognize it because, yeah, Kosovo was supposed to just be a peacekeeping operation. And except for that 1 week where the theater commander screwed up and sent us out there, it was a peacekeeping operation. But yeah, during that 1 week, he did earn us our combat infantry badges. So yeah, we get over the border and we go into Iraq and we hang a hard left. We're heading west through the desert. We drive through the desert. It was 72 straight hours of driving, other than stopping to fill our trucks up and then right back on the road. 72 straight hours. And I was falling asleep. I'm driving along. I'm falling asleep, running into the truck in front of me at that point. And so finally, JJ, my platoon sergeant, he's like, Wiles, you've got to take a nap. He's like, it's been way too long. You've got to take a nap. Swap out with me. Let me drive for a little while. I said, all right. So our next fuel stop, I swapped out with him, let him drive. I crawl over in the passenger seat. And they said I had been out maybe 5 minutes. I'd been asleep for maybe 5 minutes. And we got hit and we start taking rounds. And I caught a 7.62 round right in my side. Now those IBAs that we had, the individual body armors that we had, we didn't have plates on the side, but you had triple layer Kevlar. And it went completely through the first 2 layers, embedded itself in the bottom layer, in the 3rd layer. So it stopped it from breaking skin and coming in, penetrating into me. But it was still so hot when it got to me that it just burnt the piss out of me. And so I've still got a scar right here from how bad it burnt me, and then it busted those 3 ribs right there. And to this day, I have not, that was 2003, so that was 21 years ago. To this day, I cannot sleep in the passenger side of a vehicle. Doesn't matter how tired I am. When I was I worked on ambulance district for 6-8 years. And we'd run city trips, be running patients up to St. Louis and back a lot of times. And we'd be on our way back, I'm driving, and I'm falling asleep, I'm nodding off, I'm all over the road. And medic would be like, oh my God, swap out with me, I'll drive, hey, you get over here and catch some sleep. So we'd pull over, we'd swap out, I'd get into the passenger seat, and then I'm wide awake. There's no sleeping involved. To this day, I cannot sleep in the passenger side of a vehicle. It was kind of, I always say it's funny, though it's not funny, it's sad, but it was funny. We, in 03, very few enlisted men were getting medals, especially Purple Hearts. It was all the officers. Almost every officer we had a Purple Heart, whether it was from getting shot or they stubbed their toe. They had a damn Purple Heart. But I didn't get one for that because it didn't break skin. I had another round come in and hit the radio mount inside of my Humvee, and it knocked a chunk of the radio mount off. That's what the teardrop looking scar here is what it's from. Didn't get a Purple Heart on that one because it technically wasn't the enemy round that broke the skin. It was a chunk of my own vehicle that the enemy round knocked off that broke the skin. I was supposed to get out. My initial 4 years was up, and I would have been going on terminal leave 2 days after we landed in Kosovo. No, not Kosovo, Kuwait. 2 days after we landed in Kuwait, I was scheduled, I should have been getting out of the Army and going on terminal leave. But they had enacted stop loss, so nobody could get out, nobody could transfer units, transfer stations. And so then once it transitioned from Operation Iraqi Freedom into Operation Enduring Freedom, then they lifted stop loss and started letting people out. So once I got all my guys that were eligible to go home, once I got all them out, then the rest of my guys actually pinned me down in the middle of one night. I woke up and they had me pinned down with a blanket in my cot that night, and they said, look, you've already passed up 5 opportunities to go home to get all of our guys out of here. All of our guys that are eligible to go have gone. It's your turn. And it's like, if you don't take this opportunity to go home, we're getting rid of you one way or the other. So, yeah, I ended up, went ahead and come home, out processed, got off active duty. And see, that's when you sign up for the military, whether you're signing up for 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, it doesn't matter. You're signing up for 8 years. Now, it might be 2 years active, and then your other 6 years would be inactive ready reserve. You're a civilian, you're free and clear, you can go out and do whatever you want, but if they need you, they can call you back up. And so I had done my almost 5 years active duty at that point. And so I come off, I'm on inactive ready reserve, just chilling, trying to be a civilian for a little while, learn how to do that. And we started getting letters in the mail from Department of Defense saying, oh, by the way, we're hurting for people, and we might start calling IRR back up to go back over. And I'm like, I was like, the only thing I lost over there was my mind. And it doesn't matter how many times I go back, I'm not going to find it. So I'm like, okay, who doesn't deploy? Drill sergeants don't deploy. So I found a drill sergeant unit in Granite City, Illinois, and went with them and did my last 3 years with the reserves until I was completely cleared. And so then got out officially in 2008, I do believe. I have a big mouth. I have a booming voice. If I sound off like a drill sergeant, people on the complete opposite side of the lake are going to jump. I have a big mouth. I don't like using it. Most people don't realize Bob Ross, paint a happy tree here. He was also a drill sergeant. And when he came out of the Army, when he stopped being a drill sergeant, he swore he never wanted to yell again. He actually, I'm pretty sure the story goes, He had come out of the Army, left being a drill sergeant, come home, and his son had done something. And it triggered him, and he sounded off. He yelled and he sounded off, and his son just shrunk. I mean, and started crying. And from that moment on, he swore he would never yell again. He would never sound off as a drill sergeant ever again. And that's when he started painting happy trees. And I understand where he's coming from. When I sound off, it causes a reaction. And I don't want to cause that reaction unless absolutely necessary. Just like, people in certain scenarios worry about me always having a weapon on me. And I always say, I always hope that I never have to use it again. I'm always prepared to. If the situation ever rises and I need to in order to preserve life, I will. I'm absolutely prepared to. But I hope I never have to take another life again.